Hi, everybody. I'm Matt with the LA Writers Center, and I am here with Mark McClain Wilson, who is the sound designer for the Breathe reading series. Welcome, Mark.
How you doing, man? It's good to be here. Thanks.
I'm doing well. So we'll just jump right into it. One
Cool.
of the questions that I had is what about this particular reading series did you feel particularly drawn to, and why did you want to work on this? I know you and Sheree have had a relationship before
Yeah,
professionally and stuff, so I just was wondering,
yeah.
what kind of drew you to this?
I mean, really, initially, everything it started with Sheree. Just, I mean, I've known Sheree for a long time now, and she directed a production that I was in, that I was actually acting in, about got 15 years ago, something like that. And then I worked with her as a sound designer on like three projects that, three one-person shows in a row, which were very intensive and and so I've gotten to a point now where it's like if Sheree calls, then I'm kind of like, you just tell me when and where to show up.
Yeah,
That being said, this project in this series, when everything was going down last year with George Floyd and the protests and with Black Lives Matter, it definitely was something that I just immediately, when Sheree brought it to me, I was like, absolutely, whatever you need me to do. Because it's definitely the kind of thing now where you're just kind of like, wherever I can do anything, any little bit of work to help uh, in this process of hearing more voices to be heard that
yeah,
would that have not been, that have been set to the side, or just simply haven't gotten opportunities. It's like whatever I can do, and it's not like sound design or anything like that. Is kind of like, it's like I'm going to the mountain to, it's like, I'm
right.
just doing a little bit, but definitely it's the kind of thing where it was like, yeah, whatever I can do to help.
Yeah, to be
So
part of that kind of proactive healing that
exactly.
a big project like this can do. And the writers,
Yeah.
have you worked with on the upcoming play Mark Ewing? Um,
No.
he his writing's phenomenal, and the
Oh yeah, it's when I got the scripts, I was just like, this is fabulous. I mean, just
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, I
Yeah,
felt I felt the same way as being asked to perform in them. It's like when you see that opportunity to just do at least what you can with the abilities that you have, and what
yeah,
you've been given to just amplify those voices. It's kind of
yeah,
sounds like you're in the exact same boat.
exactly, exactly.
Um, was there any point, so you are a sound designer and an actor, correct? You were
Hmm.
in Strange Fruit and stuff. How do you find, do you find that both inform the other? Do you find that there's ever crossover between?
It's really more like, what I mean, sound design was something that I really literally stumbled into when I first did it, because it was
Really?
like I was an actor and a director, and I was directing a show, or I've always been an actor and a director, and I was directing a show, and I was like, I had a real soundscape that I knew in my head. I knew what I wanted in my head, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to express this to anybody. And I bought
Right.
this. I bought like literally a refurbished, at the time, like, it was like a Windows, it was like a Windows desktop or whatever.
No way.
But when I got when they sent it to me, there was like a sound program on there, this ancient program, that I don't think hardly anybody uses anymore, called SoundForge. And I was just kind of like, oh, you know what? Let me just play around with this. And so I started playing around with it. And that was basically, I just basically kind of taught myself how to do sound. And it really helped in terms of, using it with my own work. But then when I started, Cricket Myers, who basically, in terms of anything sound design, was like absolutely my mentor, because she saw the show that I designed, and she was like, have you ever thought about doing this? She's like, you actually have
Right.
You have a knack for it. And I was
Mhm.
like, well, I'm mainly an actor, but I'm like, I'll do it if there's stuff on the side. And she recommended me really for the first gig that I ever did. When I did it, it was really interesting because for me, since I've always come primarily as an actor, I'm always looking for things in the script that can basically kind of help to support an actor. And
Yeah.
it's very interesting in the fact that there have been times when I've designed shows that I'll literally have to go to an actor and go like, hey, I put something in here to help you. I'm like, you got to listen.
Right.
You've got to listen to it because it will help you in that scene. It's going to give you something to work with. It's going to give you something to work off of. And so I think that I probably think more about design from that standpoint than the average designer, simply because I know that there are certain things in
That are
terms of,
helpful to the actor.
yeah, exactly, that actors can really play off of, and really, very specific things that actors can play off of, whether it's musical, whether whether it's a tonal landscape that you're trying to set, or an effect that can really help an actor in a scene, because it's kind of like, listen, that's a
Sure.
cue, that's something for you to react off of. And it's interesting because it's like, I think that there are some actors who have that instinct to kind of listen to that stuff, and some actors just they don't have that natural ear. They just don't
Right.
think to listen to that stuff. And so it is interesting when I'm designing that sometimes I really do have to like go to an actor and go like, you got to wait, dude. You
This
got
is
to wait.
ridiculous.
You got to wait on that line. There's a thing for you there that I made for you that you got to get. It's like, if you don't get it, it's not going to make sense in your line. So
Yeah.
that can
Well,
be
it's not
that can be interesting at times.
such an interesting way, because I know that there are obviously directors that also act, and they try and they know what it's like to be an actor, so they obviously direct that way. But it's interesting to hear that from the sound perspective, because you're right,
Yeah.
you know what it's like to have that audio help. And so just kind of another last question I had was,
Hmm.
so you kind of mentioned it before, when you're reading a script,
Hmm.
do you kind of, when do you hear and you're kind of starting to
Yeah.
mark and notice, and what in scripts do you find helpful? Are there definitely some scripts where it comes more natural for you to hear the soundscape of it, or there's some where it just kind of, no matter what's in the script, you can always find
Honestly,
it?
it really depends on the script and on the writer, because even in the scripts that we're doing for this series, um, you know, the first script in Villains, there are very specific notations, but that the writer put in there. But there's a lot of area that is open where you could put stuff in the second script. It's marked so specifically. I mean,
Right.
the playwright is like, this basically, no matter which path you end on. When I'm reading a script, I will always start with the idea of any possibility. It's like I try to start with a script almost like a writer, in terms of like, don't edit anything. If I'm reading
Just
along and I just have ideas of kind of like, what, that could be something that could be cool there, whether it's literal, whether it's figurative, like kind of like, let's have a symbolic sound of like some kind
just
of
trying
weird
stuff out.
weird gong making love to a steel beam, it's whatever.
Right.
Or it's like, oh, okay, we'll need a bird there. Or it's like, entrance, okay, we need a door there. It's like, some of it is very literal, but it's like, over time, what I've learned is to just like go, no, mark down anything that I hear that is even possible. And in another designer that I know in LA, the best compliment I ever got is, he came up to me and he goes, you hear things in a script that I can't hear. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool, I'll take that. I was like,
Yeah.
that's
No.
I was like, that's pretty cool, I'll take that. But then, it's like, once I have that list, it all goes through the director. It's like, it all
Sure.
depends on the director, because everything that I hear, and this is something as well that's kind of changed over the years as well. It's like when I first started, I was like, everything I hear has to be in the final. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and I've so learned over the years. It's like so much of it is just garbage. And
yeah, yeah.
it's just noise, and it doesn't add anything. It's all just me. It's basically the
The director sifts
equivalent
through.
equivalent of a sound designer like going me,
You're right.
just listen to me. And so
Yeah,
I've definitely learned over the years that it's kind of like I can have a billion ideas, uh but it's all up to the director and their vision. So it's like I will take and I'll sit down with the director and go like, all right, I'm going to go through everything that I've marked down in terms of anything that I could potentially hear in this thing. You tell me what you think works for your vision and what won't. And they're usually pretty clear about that. It's like sometimes they're kind of like, experimental directors who are kind of like, oh, it all sounds good, play, and
right.
it ends up being a kind of
Much.
work as you go along. And sometimes like you'll sit there and like rattle stuff off, and the director will go, no, 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 yes, yes, no, 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 like that clear.
Wow.
And both of them are really cool. It's like in different ways.
Well, yeah, you learn more about yourself and your instincts in them, and you're constantly refining with each project to just. I mean, that is. I find that very fascinating. That it just seems to be like all impulse of what you think could be there, but then it seems to be refined by the other people in the collaboration and just
Yeah,
build.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And it's like if anything, I guess I would say, if going back to the question that you asked before, that you were like, does your acting,
yeah.
does it feed into the design? That in that way, I have learned over years how to do that, because certainly as an actor, you never want to go in with any preconceived notions. You want to go in with as many ideas as possible, with as many thoughts as possible, and you've got to go in with a sense of yes, from the very beginning. And that has kind of changed in my design, like my thoughts in terms of design, in that I generally start with a kind of like, who knows, it could go anywhere. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's basically how it's been working for me over the years.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, Strange Fruit, obviously, I really enjoyed your work in
Oh,
that, both
thanks,
as
man.
an actor and as the sound design. So I'm looking forward to Villains. And
Absolutely, I think it's gonna be great.
yeah, I do too. Well, thank you
It's
so much
great.
for joining us, Mark.
Absolutely, my friend, anytime. I appreciate it.